Written by his student Arrian, the discourses outline Epictetus' Stoic lectures on developing wisdom, courage, and self-control. He emphasizes accepting externals as indifferent and focusing on moral purpose within. For example, in discussing adversity, Epictetus advises viewing difficulties as opportunities to demonstrate fortitude rather than victims to bemoan. Overall, the discourses teach remaining undisturbed through reason and distinguishing perceptions from reality to cultivate equanimity. Meditations, Marcus Aurelius. The personal journal of Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius records his reflections on applying Stoic philosophy during a reign beset by challenges. He frequently ponders themes of impermanence, duty, modesty, and recognizing shared interests uniting all people philosophically prior to superficial divisions. For instance, he writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The meditations impart persevering judiciously through focused participation and appreciation of life's fleeting yet profound privileges. On the shortness of life, Seneca. Seneca argues life seems long due to its distractions yet passes swiftly when engaged purposefully. He advises structuring routines to maximize virtues developed like patience and justice versus wasting limited vitality in meaningless sensations. For example, Seneca notes, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Overall, On the Shortness of Life promotes urgency informing efforts focused conscientiously through principled action rather than undisciplined indulgences leaving yet dissatisfied inwardly. On the Happy Life, Seneca. Exploring happiness, Seneca discusses virtues as life's true treasure gained permanently unlike fortunes fluctuating vulnerably. External pursuits provide fleeting pleasures yet internal peace stems from developing fortitude resiliently through philosophy incorporated steadily in conduct. For instance, he contrasts joy from wisdom with that of unstable desires which trouble both others and themselves. On the Happy Life inspires durably nourishing contentment through reason cultivated cooperatively with impermanence's changes. Letters from a Stoic, Seneca. A collection of 124 letters to Lucilius on various philosophical topics, Letters from a Stoic strengthens reasoning and behavior through insightful discussions. For example, in advising a friend distressed by another's death, Seneca counsels focusing on life's purpose beyond fleeting diversions which end inevitably. The letters lucidly outline Stoic precepts for cultivating presence, justice, and appreciation amid existence's mixedness encountered through character maturing resiliently. On the Nature of Things, Lucretius. Presenting an Epicurean view partly aligned with Stoicism, Lucretius' poem discusses atoms and void as nature's components governed not divinities. It aims liberating humanity from superstitions through reason comprehending causality naturally versus supernaturally. For instance, exploring mortality's consolations, Lucretius argues life follows natural cycles unperturbed unlike dreaded endings imagined fearfully. On the Nature of Things encourages perspective empowering equitable participation within reality benevolently coherent versus ominously arbitrary. To Marcia on Consolation, Seneca. Advising a grieving friend, Seneca discusses mortality's lessons on accepting impermanence and living virtuously without postponing duties for uncertainties. Death represents nature's cycle rather than injustice, and equanimity emerges appreciating each moment's significance amid life's brevity. For example, he notes, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." To Marcia on Consolation nurtures resilience through perspective shift focusing improvements on character cultivated meaningfully versus vain hopes prolonging discontentedness. This concludes Part 1 exploring influential Stoic texts that developed philosophical perspectives on virtue, nature, duty, and cultivating presence amid existence's mixed experiences navigated judiciously through challenges cooperated with rationally. Part 2 will continue outlining Stoic wisdom imparted through canonical works that guide living purposefully within life's uncertainties. On Providence, Plutarch. Plutarch defends providence and natural order benevolently governing all. Chance represents surface appearances obscuring causality perceptible through contemplation. He argues nature exhibits design evident through reasoning, not proofs demanded misguidedly. For example, Plutarch notes randomness undermines ethics while providence reconciles vicissitudes cooperatively. On Providence nurtures equanimity through optimism finding purposeful coherence amid life's fluctuations. Tusculan Disputations, Cicero. Addressing fears of death and pain, Cicero outlines reasoning freedom from perturbations through virtue in accord with natural constitution. He encourages fortitude developing through difficulties cooperated judiciously versus resented compulsorily. The text elucidates proper living as fulfilling social functions rather than indulging fleeting predilections at others' cost. For instance, Cicero notes reforming requires accountability through congruence of action with attitude. Tusculan Disputations enlightens resilient participation nurtured through cooperation with reality's flows. On fate, Cicero. Defending Stoic doctrine, Cicero's dialogue contrasts fate as nature's order with superstition attributing meaninglessness to chance. While outcomes inevitably follow causality, choices steer judgments freely, still guided by reason and purpose. He illustrates fate comprising not compulsion but consistent sequence, profoundly significant. For example, fulfilling duties aligns individual will with universal design, fortifying presence resiliently. On fate inspires accommodation, finding significance amid nature's determinate yet benevolent progression. Natural questions, Seneca. Seneca explores meteorology, earth science, and astronomy through investigations guided by observation and hypotheses and open to revision through further learning. He urges engaging realities judiciously through empirical discernment versus dogmatism, stagnating adaptation to new perspectives. For instance, Seneca illustrates humility and progress through considerations maintained tentatively yet illuminated cooperatively. Natural questions nurtures scientific spirit through equitable, judicious participation within nature's ingenious yet accessible order. Dialogues, Epictetus. Recorded conversations between Epictetus and students discuss applying philosophy amid concrete problems. For example, how to maintain patience when slighted or achieve equanimity facing illness. Epictetus encourages focusing on controllable efforts like reactions versus ungovernable circumstances. The dialogues impart resilient participation through discussions emphasizing virtue's momentum withstands all vicissitudes, navigated judiciously versus compulsively reacted against. On anger, Seneca. Seneca examines anger as perturbation disrupting reason through rashness versus considered response. He urges channeling indignation constructively by understanding contexts versus fixating on surface appearances, provoking disproportionate reactions. For instance, with wisdom anger informs yet without it escalates harms futilely. On anger nurtures insight, tempering passions through discernment of realities versus preconceptions reactionarily intensified. Hellenica, Xenophon. Xenophon's historical treatise relates virtue's rewards among Spartan youth undergoing rigorous training for courage and self-sufficiency. Hardships strengthened character, cooperated with rationally versus resented as persecutions. He illustrates formation through difficulties faced judiciously rather than avoided, lest resilience diminishes vulnerability to unpreparedness. Hellenica inspires fortitude cultivated through realities encountered and navigated purposefully versus resisted compulsively. Handbook, Epictetus. A concise summary of Epictetus' philosophy, the Handbook provides pithy advice on adapting wisely to uncertainties through virtue. He urges distinguishing perceptions' healthiness from events indifferent to happiness. For example, watch your assumptions, sometimes they turn out to be wrong, and expectations get in the way of clear seeing. The Handbook's aphorisms succinctly impart an empowering perspective for participating resiliently within life's fluid